I feel like I always end up saying there's some great reminders in that song. I just love the power of music. It's made to be powerful. I think that's why it's so important to have some good music to listen to. Anyway, we're going to be in Joshua 3 and 4, but not looking at every single verse, just getting some great application, seeing the story move forward, hopefully, as we continue on in our series, really of how to move forward. And again, I imagine as I say even just that message series title, different things can pop into our minds about moving forward in this setting or that setting, this situation or that situation. Everything certainly applies to moving forward in our faith, moving forward in our relationship with God. And I think you get it. We either move forward or we move backward. Now, I love coasting. My dad and I have done a good bit of biking over the years. I haven't done a lot lately, but I do love coasting on a bike. Mr. Sherman and I were talking about how walking, hiking, running downhill isn't always much fun. But coasting on a bike, there you're not landing hard on your knees. There you're just sitting back and relaxing. It's a lot of fun. But in our spiritual lives, really in fitness or anything, we can't stay where we are. We either move forward or we drift backwards. If you've ever been in a boat in a creek or a river with a lot of current, hopefully not the kind we're seeing on the news in Texas and all that nonsense, but even just a gentle current, you know you've got to put effort into staying where you are. Mr. Glenn, you need my attention? You had a look. I was just making sure. I think he had this look of really paying attention, and he's doing great. So there you go. You get a little credit. I just wanted to make sure that I had switched my mic on properly and all that. But man, you gotta row and row to just stay where you're at. And if you're gonna progress, you gotta put in effort. What we do in our spiritual lives as well. And I wanted to illustrate just a little bit of what we'll be talking tonight about as we look forward to this idea, how to move forward before a miracle comes. How to move forward before a miracle comes. And this will sound completely unrelated, and maybe it is, but I think we'll be able to draw out a simple idea. You get to participate in tonight's challenge right from your seat. Don't worry, the live stream camera won't capture you doing this. It will capture me failing, I'm sure. But if you want to participate, grab a pen. There should be one right in front of you in the pew. There should be about 4 or so in the row right in front of you. So should be plenty. Grab a pen or a pencil. Yours is fine. The one in the pew there is fine. Just return it when you're done, I guess. Especially if my wife is watching. She always keeps an eye that we have all of those, so please return it there. I said so. But first challenge, take the pen. See if you can twirl it between your fingers. Twirl it, twiddle it, whatever you call it. Addison, your pen that I'm borrowing is not the easiest one to do this with. Yeah, apparently use it to draw. It wouldn't go well if I used it to draw. Okay, so maybe you can do that. Next challenge, do it without your thumb. I'll try. I'll be a sport. Okay. I ran out of pen. I could get it for a while, and then the way my arm is hurting doing this. Anybody feel like they're good at it? No. Okay. You're using your thumb, though. You can show off on that later if you want on that. But I think sometimes it's easy to think of moving forward before we get a miracle in that same kind of way. Moving forward without what we most need. Trying to function without the most important tool. And my goodness, your thumb. There's a youth group game I've done before of a no thumbs challenge. It's a glove that ties your thumb like that, and you're supposed to open a 20-ounce bottle cap or open a doorknob and just all sorts of silly things. Maybe even do something with a pen, and it's pretty fun. One of our teens, her grandfather, in a tragic accident years ago, lost his thumbs. And so he's a master at doing things without his thumbs, and he's taught her over the years, so she was always good at that game. But trying to function without the most important tool is not how we're supposed to move forward. That's not what it looks like before God sends a miracle. In this case, we'll be looking at before God parts the Jordan River. Moving forward is not moving forward without the most important tool. Because the river parting, that was never what mattered most. God's presence, that's how they could move forward. They're going to face a lot of battles this week. Again, moving toward the battle with Jericho, hopefully in the next week or two. But this week, the battle they face is, okay, we're supposed to go over there, big river. It's swollen this time of year. It's flood conditions. How do we do that? A couple spies maybe swam over or found a crossing, but we've got livestock and women and children and men that don't swim very well either, maybe, I don't know, and just on and on. They had to move forward in faith even before the river parted. We talked about it before, but the priests actually stepped into the Jordan River and got their feet wet. Probably the bottom of the robes wet. All of that before God parted the river. How to move forward before a miracle comes? Well, it's not moving forward without the most important part, because the most important part is never a miracle. It's always God's presence. That's kind of miraculous in and of itself. But we'll take a look at several ideas here tonight. First of all, as we look at Joshua 3, starting in verse 1, when you go somewhere new, follow the one who's already there. When you go somewhere new, we could word it as follow the one who's got a plan and a path. We've talked about God doing that. But God's everywhere. He was already on the other side of the Jordan River. And He knows the end from the beginning, and He could see, He already knew what He was going to do. All they had to do was follow literally one step at a time. Each step would look a little different. They got to cross through the Jordan River. Then they got to walk around Jericho. Walls are going to come tumbling down. And then they're going to fight some battles where they've got to actually draw swords and fight. Different battles on different days, but it's always following through with God. When we go somewhere new, follow the one who's already there. Be willing to take that first step in faith. Joshua 3:1. And Joshua rose early in the morning. I love that. I'm not trying to challenge you to be a morning person. That's really none of my business. Anybody like, yeah, I'm a morning person? I used to think I was, and then I've met some of y'all that like, yeah, 4 o'clock's early. Okay, no, I'm not a morning person. That's good sleeping time right there. But I love Joshua's eagerness. He has a job to do. He's not putting it off. He's not trying to wait for another day, let alone even later in the day. Sometimes delays just lead into detours. And if we put it off, it never happens. I love his eagerness. Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. So they're going to follow the ark of the covenant. Probably know from the Old Testament, that was where the presence of God dwelt, on the mercy seat there. And so they're literally following God, following the physical representation of God's presence there. Verse 4, yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go. For ye have not passed this way heretofore. You have never been here. So follow God. And in fact, stay a little ways back. Stay hundreds of feet back so you can see which way to go. I think sometimes we want to be right up there by God. You sure? That way? What about this? I think I forgot something. Can I go back? No. And I don't mean get distance between us and God, but in the planning process, let's give God the room to lead us and have us follow. Again, this was uncharted territory. Maybe for us, that could be a new job, a new adventure, and you can define that however fits your life, a new calling sometimes. But Jesus is the one, God is the one who's already there. I love Ephesians 2:6. It talks about how God has made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus. God has a way of looking at us in a reality where it's as if our salvation is so secure, it's as if we're already sitting with Jesus in heavenly places. It's that guaranteed. It's a lock. It's going to happen. Maybe a little bit of life before that, but God's got that. I love that Joshua got up early. I love that they're following and letting God lead the way. And then I love throughout this passage that they're recognizing that, yeah, okay, it's a river. A river's a physical thing. But they didn't need the strongest swimmers to attach ropes to, children and tie them to their backs and swim across. They didn't need I heard one pastor say maybe they had some sort of Army Corps of Engineers, the equivalent of that, the Old Testament Israel equivalent of that. They don't call for the best builders or the best swimmers to charge the river. They call for the spiritual leaders so they can follow God. Now, at other points, does God challenge the builders, maybe not the swimmers, but the builders or the warriors of Israel to lead the way? Absolutely. He's already done that. Joshua has already been in a battle on that side of Jordan, led the way. Moses is up there with Aaron and Hur holding his rod up. Absolutely. But here and throughout, it's not necessarily just a physical battle. Sometimes I think we're up against spiritual warfare that the Bible talks about, and we're bringing a knife to a gunfight, so to speak. We're bringing physical solutions, or the best we can come up with, to a spiritual issue. Sometimes God's teaching us a spiritual lesson, and we're not listening because we're just thinking, well, that challenge I'm running up against, it couldn't be because I've got sin in my life. It would have to be just because of this or that, and we're trying everything, and we're wearing ourselves out, and God's like, hey, just stop. Repent of that sin, or just stop. Maybe there's no sin in your life, but learn the spiritual lesson. Just stop, step back, let me lead you in which way to go. So I think that's an important thing to remember throughout this passage as well. Next, as we get all the way to verse 5, before God can use us, He changes us. Before God can use us, He changes us. Verse 5, and Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Again, it's going to be God that does it, but sanctify yourself. Set yourself apart. Some stuff had to go. Back in the 90s, the popular thing at like youth camps was to take bad music CDs that people had bought. Maybe their parents didn't even know they had it, and to burn them. I've always wondered how that worked, because CDs don't really burn very well. That's probably a lot of the environmental issues we're having now from those youth group services. I'm not sure. But, throw away the CDs. I guarantee you the people of Israel had no compact discs to throw away. Digital music wasn't really a thing back then either. But I would have been, no doubt, some sin to confess. Can you imagine? God's going to do something amazing. They don't even know all the details yet. God's going to do something amazing as you finally, hundreds of years, I believe it was about 500 years from when Abraham was promised the land to this point. Hundreds of years later, they finally get to go into the promised land. Do you think they were willing to have a little revival service if they needed to? Maybe in the privacy of their own tent. But I'm not going to hold on to sin and miss out. They needed to sanctify themselves, to set themselves apart. I imagine some good stuff got added in. Maybe some of them hadn't thought about the Lord much in the last 40 years of wandering through the desert whenever they were born there in the wilderness. And now all of a sudden they were. They were sanctified. They were set apart. God wants to change us, to clean some stuff up. We set our lives apart for all sorts of things. Why not set our lives apart for God? And again, you can think, oh no, I'm my own man or I'm my own woman. Nobody tells me what to do. Yeah, it's probably our own sinful desires telling us what to do. And we'll set ourselves apart for those things. It's easy to, a lot of illustrations. Saturdays before long, part of Saturday, every Saturday that I can, will be set apart to watch some Florida Gator football. Go DJ Lagway. Our quarterback's looking good. We're hoping for a much better year. But we set apart ourselves. We set apart our time for a lot of things. Some of you are like, hunting season comes, fishing season comes, this season, that season. Anybody bowl, and when that season rolls around, yeah, there you go. We set apart those times. Not necessarily anything in the world wrong with any of that, but why would we not, first of all and most of all, set ourselves, our lives apart for God? Sanctify yourselves. Will we respond? Will we receive God? Will we be set apart and set God apart as the number one priority in our lives? Sadly, a lot of times, it's a mix. Well, okay, that part, God, you can have. Some of you saw my devotion picture took yesterday. Me and the girls in front of Buc-ee's. Yes, Jen was there. That was the busiest Buc-ee's I have ever seen in my life, and we have been to quite a few. If you don't know what Buc-ee's is, there's a new one about 2 hours straight down 81 from here in the mighty metropolis of Mount Crawford. Anybody actually heard of Mount Crawford, Virginia? Yeah, awesome produce stand there and a Buc-ee's. But yeah, there you go. Great place to go. But they build these giant gas stations called Buc-ee's in the middle of nowhere, near a city. That one's near Harrisonburg, James Madison University and Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg there. And but they build them there. They don't allow 18-wheelers. They're not allowed. And the store itself is probably 2/3 the size of a Walmart. Seriously, enormous. Girls got t-shirts. They got some of the best barbecue sandwiches you'll ever have in your life. Seriously, get a brisket sandwich if you go to Buc-ee's. It is phenomenal. And again, we lived in Texas. We know barbecue. We've had barbecue from a lot of places. These are fantastic. But we got to go to Buc-ee's. That one has only been open for about 3 weeks, and it took 10 minutes to park. But it was amazing to just walk through there, and literally I'm just hearing strangers say, I'm never coming back here. So many people. My dad and I enjoy a good Yogi Berra quote. Yogi Berra is a Hall of Fame baseball player, not Yogi Bear. No boo-boo and no picnic baskets, sorry. Yogi Berra, but he had an interesting way of using words in a lot of ways. We got a book around and all of that of his sayings, but he's made the statement about a place, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. If you think about it, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it does in a way. That was kind of how Buc-ee's was. I mean, just slammed. We had a good time getting to go there. But partway through there, it was interesting to see some probably T-shirts and even some towels and some different things that had Christian messages on them. And I saw one, and I'm not sure if it's Christian owned. Everybody was friendly. It was great. I don't know that it's a Christian beaver. There's a giant beaver. That's their mascot. I don't know how to tell the faith of a beaver, but he was smiling, so that's good. But there was one towel, and it had just a wonderful Christian message. I might even be able to read it to you. I did take a picture of it. It was... Southern 10 Commandments, and the very first one, ain't but one God, so putting it in a Southern way, but honor your Y-E-R, your ma and pa, no telling tales or gossiping, some great stuff. Says about, Sunday morning being for church and just on and on, some good stuff. Right above it was a towel with a curse word on it. Yeah. And it was just interesting. And I don't say that to hate on Buc-ee's. I enjoy Buc-ee's. Again, barbecue was fantastic. Just a lot of fun there. No knock on them. A lot of companies sell merchandise that we wouldn't buy necessarily as Christians. But I found it interesting. Right there is some stuff about God, and right there is some stuff that's the opposite. And I think in our lives, maybe we don't struggle with cursing, but sometimes it's okay. Man, I am all about God in this. I am sanctified. I am set apart in this area. That one's for me. Picture that with the people of Israel. It didn't work this way, but picture that if they held back part of themselves. I guess that would be some of them get to cross and some don't. That didn't happen as far as we know. Or imagine if one person was like, okay, most of me is for God, but my left foot, that's for me. I don't know how that works, but again, they're inching into the it just wouldn't work. And as ridiculous of an image as that is, trying to cross and your left foot's not going anywhere. That's how it's tempting to live as Christians sometimes. No, let's set apart everything about our lives for God. One time I heard about a guy who, I don't know what he was trying to prove. This was before social media, so he wasn't posting it, but he strapped a refrigerator to himself and started running a race. Waddling, I don't know what you do with the fridge on your back. My running form isn't always great, but I don't know what that guy did. The straps broke, it fell on him, he injured himself. He sued the strap company. Ridiculous. But I think you would agree, if we're going to be ready to run a race, there's some stuff that's got to go. And if we're going to be ready to move forward for God, we need to set ourselves apart from some stuff. Maybe it's not sin. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's fine. But you'll move farther forward with God if you set that apart. Again, Saturdays, I watch some college football. I honestly am motivated to not get very into the NFL. No knock on it, but I don't need to spend as much time on Saturday and as much time on Sunday and as much time on Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football just watching football. That's just too much. Now, again, if you're into NFL, and then no knock on it, absolutely. But at the same time, we need to be even willing to set aside some good stuff. And man, if we're going to move forward, even before the sea parts, even before the Jordan River parts there, even before a miracle, we just need to remember who God is. Verse 6, and Joshua spake unto the priests, those spiritual leaders, saying, pick up the Ark of the Covenant, and pass over before the people. I love it, simply. And they took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. He told them to do it, they did it. It's just, a wonderful thing. They're just willing to obey. But the ark was going before God. Let me just remind you, maybe it's been a while since you've looked at it. Maybe you remember. I had to look it up to make sure I was thinking of everything. But the things that were in the wooden ark, so just basically a big wooden boat, or big wooden, it wasn't a boat, big wooden box, not the ark that was the boat. But in there were the 10 Commandments engraved on stone tablets. So when God literally wrote those for the people. There was a golden pot of manna. They covered it with gold, reminding them of God's provision in the wilderness there. There was Aaron's rod that budded to show that Aaron and his descendants were the priestly line. And on top, so we got this wooden chest overlaid with gold. serving as a symbol of God's presence. On top was the mercy seat with beautiful angels carved there on that. And I love the fact that that's where God's presence would come down. They'd set that up in the tabernacle and then the temple, and it's the mercy seat that reminded them most of God's presence. Don't we all need God's mercy? That's what they're following. The priests carrying that. God who is merciful, God who is the provider of manna, God who gave them the 10 commandments. By the way, not the 2,000 commandments. There's other rules, but they really all come back to those 10. He keeps it pretty simple for us in so many ways. Even Aaron's rod that showed that God gave them spiritual leadership. That's what they're following. God who goes with you. That's who they're following. And we can remember who God is. Then we can realize that what God is doing through us really isn't about us. Realize that what God is doing through us really isn't ultimately about us. It's an absolute privilege to be used by God. Again, not what we can do, but what God can do through us. It is the best thing in the Christian life to be a part of what God is doing. I said it before VBS, all we wanted was what God wanted to do. I'm thrilled here after VBS that we got to be a part of what God did at Vacation Bible School. I'm thrilled we got to be a part of what God wanted to do this morning in church and tonight. It's not ultimately about us. Verse 7, and the Lord said unto Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that, as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. And thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, you shall stand still in Jordan. So God's saying, hey, I'm going to lift you up. I'm going to magnify you as the leader like I did with Moses, so these people will follow you. I love Joshua's response in verse 9. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, come here, and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, hereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Jebusites and the termites and the electric lights and the mosquito bites. Not so much those last three, not original to me. Verse 11, behold the ark. Here's how you're going to know that he's going to cast all them out. He's going to defeat all of those ites there. Verse 11, behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. So you're going to follow that. Verse 12, now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel. So out of every tribe of man, 12 tribes, 12 men. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon an heap. What God wants to do through us is mostly about him. Joshua didn't even say, hey, all right, fellas. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's all time to follow me. God's going to magnify me. I'm going to get to do some miracles. I'm going to lead you through nose. Hey, we're going to follow God. We're going to follow the ark. It's all about God. Joshua did a great job as leader there of not making it about him and of realizing that what God was doing through him was ultimately about God. I hope we'll do that as well. We start making it all about us, we're not going to go very far. And then we need to move forward based on faith in what God has called us to do. Move forward in faith based on what God has called us to do. One pastor said, God always has a full picture of our future. God can see the end from the beginning. He has a full picture of our future. We need to trust him. Verse 14, it came to pass when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of harvest. It's flood season. That the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon an heap very far from the city. Adam, I don't know, I've heard it pronounced both ways there. That is beside Zaratan. I have no idea if that's the right pronunciation there, but that's what I always go with. And those that came down toward the sea of the plain. Even the salt sea failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. Again, talked about it a lot, but those priests, they don't get to stand there. Boom, sea parted, let's go on dry ground. They did not step into dry ground. Priest stepped in, getting wet. I don't know if they looked around. I don't know if they started to sink. They're carrying the ark. I mean, that's heavy. I don't know. Sandals. You ever wear sandals into squishy mud? That's not fun. You lift them up, there goes one sandal. There goes the other, and they're stuck down. I have no idea. They're stepping there, and at that moment, questions could arise, and no doubt they did, unless they had their faith in what God called them to do. God told them to go in the river. God told them to step in before it parted. God told them to carry the ark. If God's told us to go where we are, to do what we're doing, we don't need to question when the miracle doesn't come right away. We don't need to question when things get difficult. We can ask God, okay, how am I supposed to keep going? Even why, God, is this happening? But we don't need to question, am I going the right way? They didn't need to turn around and dry off a little bit. Okay, other priests, Levites, you want to go? I don't know, that was a little squishy. My sandals are a little rough here. No, they could move forward in faith based on what God had called them to do. My understanding, water's backed up to the city of Adam or Adam, however you say that, 16 miles. 16 miles. I've seen movie depictions of, a dam and rivers and, Adam, waters, dam up. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think that has anything to do with it, but damn, Adam. Anyway, but doubt that has anything to do with anything, but that just crossed my mind literally for the first time. You're hearing this just with me for the first time. I don't think that's what the city was named after. I guess that works though. But 16 miles. You look at the power of the water behind that. The Hoover Dam, I've gotten to be on the Hoover Dam. I took the tour, been down in it. The Hoover Dam annually generates about 4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. Powers the homes and everything, businesses for about 1.3 million people across Nevada, Arizona, and California. There's a lot of power behind water if it can be harnessed. 16 miles of an overflowing river. There's a lot of power. God gives them an amazing reminder of who He is and what He is going to do. Do you think seeing that helped them feel a little more confident, a little more faith in the coming battles? They crossed over right by Jericho. I imagine they could see Jericho as they crossed. Jericho was not a wimpy city. Giant walls, they found them. They've excavated those very walls. I've heard rumors, I don't know. I've not confirmed this, but that they found one stretch of the wall that never fell down. Could that be Rahab's house? I'm not confident I don't know if they found that. But they have found where the walls came a-tumbling down, not knocked in or anything like an invading army maybe would do. God was going to do amazing things. And I think just the sight of all that water, I don't know if it was this giant wave. I don't know, as soon as they cross and the waters come back, if it was a tidal wave. I don't know exactly how it looked. Video in heaven, that'll be amazing, absolutely. But here we see, again, just God's power. They could move forward even with their toes getting squishy in the water because they knew God had called us there. God had called them there. We're going to quit often on the big stuff God calls us to unless we are confident that God has called us. That's going to be the only thing. God has called us and God is with us, or we're going to quit. As we look a little farther, verse 17, we should have a first one's in, last one's out kind of Christianity. We should be willing to be what the priests were here. I don't think they were compared to Marines, even though they were going on land and water here. But verse 17, and the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan. And all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan. Then the priests are able to come out. Again, they were the first ones in, they were the last ones out. We need to have that mentality. No, I am not encouraging you to necessarily show up earlier or stay later after church. I love that we get to fellowship before and after church, but this isn't so much of a time thing. But if God wants to use us, we should be first ones in, last ones out. We shouldn't be looking for how little we can do. We should be looking eagerly to be involved in what God has for us. And I love the reminders, how the Bible kind of compares us to sheep, right? I'm no shepherd, but one thing I know about sheep, it's much easier to lead sheep than to drive them. You can drive some cattle, not exactly my world, but you can drive some cattle, but you lead sheep. God's not going to drive us and make us, but He is going to invite us. He is going to show us. He's got a plan. We should want to be a part of it. And then as we look at just the first part of Joshua chapter 4, kind of getting the gist of this, not necessarily going to look at every verse, but our last point, we should build for the future by laying the right foundation. we're going to move forward for God, really before or after we've seen him do something miraculous, we need to build for not just today, but for the future by laying the right foundation. Let's read the first several verses here, starting in verse 1. It came to pass when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, so they've gotten through, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man, and command ye them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones. And ye carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where ye shall lodge this night. So each of you, 1 stone for every tribe of Israel, carry them over, build a little thing, little memorial where you're going to sleep tonight on the other side of Jordan. And Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every man a tribe, out of every tribe a man, And Joshua said unto them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What mean ye by these stones? Then ye shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord when it passed over Jordan. The waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded. They needed a foundation in the land, not to literally build on, but to spiritually build on. That was going to no doubt help them as they're walking toward Jericho real soon, to look back and say, there's a reminder of what God did just yesterday, just a moment ago, but then in generations to come. Can you imagine walking a kiddo down there by the Jordan River? I would have waited till flood season again. Same time of year. Water's roaring. Hey, you see those stones? You know where they came from? Middle of the river. Wow, were you guys really good, strong swimmer? No, it was dry ground. God parted those waters. Let me remind you about it. What a spiritual lesson. Well, you don't have to have 12 stones to be able to do that. We can remind everybody we can about the truths from the Bible, but I hope we've got some stuff. Hey, this is what God did for me. Everybody that's a Christian has their testimony. I wonder when the last time you told somebody about the time Jesus saved you was. It's an important thing to tell people. That's one of the first things Jen and I have done in any ministry we've become a part of is, whether it was teens, adults, church here, everybody, mix of ages. We want people to know that we're saved. That kind of matters, right? I hope you don't have those questions. But at the same time, we want to brag on God a little bit of what He's done, because we're looking to see God use us, to see God use our church. Well, it should be a foundation of what God has done for us already. A foundation of prayer is something we should build on. A foundation of Bible study. A foundation of a biblical worldview. We're almost done, but the Bible has a specific way for us to look at issues, right? Some people will say, well, my body, my choice, what's the big deal with abortion? Well, the Bible makes it clear that's not a woman's body. That is another life. That before I formed thee in the womb, I knew thee. Life begins at conception. God's plan for that life goes before that. Before your mom ever met your dad, God had a plan for you. Isn't that special? And all of a sudden, we're looking at issues through the Bible's lens, through what we often call a biblical worldview, and it puts things into perspective. The world has a worldview. They want us to look through issues that they can't even agree with each other, but at the same time, if we'll look through every issue through the Bible, it'll help. Pastor Kurt Skelly, that I often quote, he says, you can't borrow someone else's faith, but you can build upon someone else's faith. And I love that. We each need our own relationship with God through Jesus. Absolutely. Can't borrow someone else's faith. We can build upon someone else's faith. Hope you got some Bible characters. You're kind of building your life on their faith. That's what God did for them. I want God to do something for me. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go stand in a squishy creek this evening and, pray for God to part it. I doubt that that's what God wants to do. If He does, please video it. That'd be cool. But at the same time, I doubt that that's it. But maybe you got something big, maybe something smaller you want God to do. Respond in faith the way they did. I hope you've got some people right now every day, in your life that can pour into you, that you can almost build your life upon your faith and their example of faith as well. Past victories should give us courage and hope for current battles. So what about you? They built those stones. I don't know what they built. I don't know, 12, four rows of 3, 3 rows of 4, one flat thing of 12. I have no idea what they did. But that's what they wanted people to notice. That's what God wanted people to notice. Do the trophies, the things in your life, does your stuff, things you talk about point to you or point to God? I hope we'll be willing to point to God every chance we get. This is Matthew 16:9, Jesus talking to the disciples, I believe. He says, do you not yet understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets he took up? They had another step of faith to take. He's like, hey, you remember what I did? 5 loaves, 2 fish, 5,000 men, women, children, That was amazing, right? That's something to build some faith on. Maybe next time you're struggling with any of this stuff, write some stuff that you can base your faith on. Maybe start with things you've seen God do in the Bible. And then maybe after that, go into things you've seen God do in your life. I hope your salvation's right there at the top. How can we move forward before a miracle comes? Well, God's going to be the most important part, not a miracle. Now, miracles are great. But even if it's just daily, in faith, one step at a time with God, as they're going to do in battle after battle here. Some of them, God miraculously intervenes. Some of them, He just, step by step, stroke of the sword by stroke of the sword, intervenes. We can move forward with God. You go home, practice twiddling your pen with no thumb if you want. I dare you to tape your thumb or just not use it and try to open a doorknob or a 20-ounce bottle. I did try that game a couple times. I was not good at it. But I admitted to my teens over the years, a lot of times the reason I had them play a certain game was just to see them play it and watch them, struggle and have fun. It was fun to watch, so they knew that. I would let Dylan and Brittany, who were here this morning, answer for that if they were still here. But anyway, girls have been a part of that as well. Did I ever make you do goofy stuff? Did I ever ask you if you want to do goofy stuff? I was not the eat gross stuff youth pastor. Some youth pastors, it's here, this is going to let's see who can eat the most without puking. No, that was not me. Not me. Couple exceptions. We won't talk about those right now, but that was not normally me. Hey, one step at a time, we can move forward with God. Let's pray. We'll do a little more singing and close our time out this evening with a little more prayer time. Let's just pray to wrap up the message. God, we thank you for your goodness. Thank you for being with them, the people of Israel there one step at a time. Thank you that you even gave them the memorial, the stones, to brag about you and to hopefully help build the faith of children, the next generation and generations to come, of this is what God did. I pray that we'll have some stones, so to speak. Certainly what you've done in the past, we can read about in the Bible, but what you've done for us, hopefully starting with our salvation, the biggest deal, the biggest stone, the biggest thing you've ever done for any of us. But then taking some time even to remember so many things you've done for us in our journey of faith there as we grow closer to you and walk through life with you. May that strengthen our faith for what's to come. People of Israel, Joshua there, they have battle after battle, and I think you just built their faith step by step, and they just followed you. They knew they'd have everything they needed. Thank you that that's true for us as well. Pray that you'll bless the rest of our evening. In Jesus'